Good morning. My name is Angel, and this will be our 6th episode of Saying Goodbye, a podcast by Angel. I was over here listening to the last episode. It was emotional for me just to listen to that all over again and just have to go through the process of catch up, like where I'm at, like where I'm at, where I was in my life. So what are we doing here? I am sharing my story with you guys about my life, about my upbringing, about, the things that I've went through in my life to hopefully touch somebody that so that they can understand that, for one, they're not alone. And a lot of times in our pain and in our struggle, I know for me, I always thought that I was singular, that I was just alone, and there was nobody else that could feel the pain that I felt. Nobody else was going through nothing. Like everything, the only thing that mattered was what I was going through, and honestly, that's the way we live our lives, right? A lot of us are private. A lot of us don't want to suffer to where anybody else would know our intimate relationship with pain, with torment, with abuse, with all these things. And I know, because I didn't want anybody to know anything about me. I really try to remain private in a lot of the things that I do. But honestly, like, God put something in my heart, and I felt the need that I had to share and tell my story, and that it would give or inspire someone else to say, if he could make it through all of that, I could make it through it. Because all of us have that level of trauma, and there's no big trauma, there's no little trauma, there's just trauma. Pain is pain. The pain is real, depending on the individual and who they are. And, whatever pain you're feeling, it matters. We're not going to go and sit here and say, I'm not going to go and sit here and say that, that's just a little bit of pain. That's, I went through this much pain. This ain't a comparison, man. This is that we're human beings, and we're suffering at record numbers. So many things, the world falling apart. On top of that, we're falling apart inside. The world around us is falling apart. Everything we knew either has fallen apart, and that is what I'm addressing here. That's what I wanna. That's what I want to talk about. So I'm gonna continue on with my story and just keep breaking down where I'm at. And in the last episode, we spoke about Bobby being murdered and me going to the hospital and being the first person to see him there, laid out on the gurney, setting up the funeral, and just doing things that I've never done before. I'm the youngest brother of 3 from my mother, and the responsibility fell on me, and that's just what it was. My brother was my everything, and I was gonna handle my business, and I handled my business, and we did what we had to do. And my other brothers around me that were there for me and there with me through it all, I love you. I appreciate you. It was some dark days. So Booby had gotten murdered, and we set everything up. Thanks to my brother that helped me out, man. I love you. I appreciate you, respect you. Yeah, despite somebody not really getting along with you or not really respecting the way you live your life, and for a death to happen, and for a man to say, come to my house, sit down, what's going on, what you need, knowing damn well we had arguments and I voiced my opinion because I had a big mouth. You know, it was sobering, it was humbling, and I was really like humbled by the opening of the door and by the helping that this brother gave me, and I appreciate it. So we got everything together. We set up the funeral. It was an Ortiz funeral home in the South Side. Oddly enough, we used to live like 2 doors down, right there in the South Side, many moons ago, when you know, my mother was just starting like to really get bad and stuff like that. We were really young. We were in the South Side. It was we used to play in abandoned apartments and all types of stuff. But I remembered all of that when I was there at the funeral home. I was like, man, we were right next door to where Booby was gonna be laid, you know, so many years in the future. And you just don't, you know, you look at a funeral home, you don't know you're gonna be, you know, putting to rest somebody that was, you know, a huge part of your life, a pillar in your life. So we set everything up. It was catastrophe. It was nuts. We had his family come from his father's side, and they wanted to pray, and you know, his sisters were there, and his father came, and his father, I wouldn't say that he's like this big time wealthiest man alive, but he was okay compared to the way that we were living, the way that Booby was living and stuff like that. Like he was okay. He was doing well for himself. And I remember that after I paid for everything, he came up to me and he said, hey, that's my son. And he said, hey, that's my son, and I want to take care of, I want to pay for something. I want to take care of something. And, you know, I was like, I thought maybe he was going to say, I'll give you, you know, like, let me, what did you pay? Let me pay half. Let me pay 30%, you know, whatever it was. And he didn't do any of that. He said, that's my son, and I wanna get him a better casket. I think he dropped like $600, $700, $800 to upgrade his casket from this to that. And that's what his father did. And, you know, I don't have no ill feelings towards him. He was never around really, like, no matter the situation, I don't know what the situation is. I'm not blaming him for it, and I really don't care. All I know is that if my kid was in the street, I'm going to the street to get my kid, no matter the circumstances, no matter what. And I did that. And you'll hear more about my story, you know, as I continue to go, and I tell you exactly what I did for my children, you know, and how much I loved them and where my dedication was. And you know what? That wasn't it. Spending $800 to upgrade a casket when your son passed, like, you know, I'm sorry. Like, if something was, God forbid, was to happen to one of my children, I'm taking care of everything. Everybody step out the way, remove yourself, and I'm going to handle it. And that's just who I am. It got nothing to do with how anybody else is. I'm not trying to belittle nobody or anything like that. I'm just saying the man that I am will not allow me to do something like that. Will not allow me to give my responsibility of being a father. I will not pass the baton on that. I will handle what I gotta handle. And that's just the way that I carry myself. So anyway, Booby's father came and he wound up being there, and I really wasn't with it. You know, I really didn't respect him. I really didn't give a shit that he was there. He wasn't there when it mattered. Like when he was alive, he didn't, he didn't come. He didn't, he didn't help the brother out. At least that's how I felt, right? And this is about how I feel. And this is my story and my perception of the way that things happen. Other people might have other stories and they might have seen it a different way. You're damn right. Because we all see things and we see things in a different way. But this ain't nobody else's story. This is mine. This is how I feel. This is particular to my emotional state when I was going through what I was going through. And, we all got the right to feel how we feel. And you got the right to express how you feel in any way, whether it disturbs somebody else or not. It doesn't matter, because that's how you feel. Respect yourself enough to express that. You don't got to be crazy and hurt anybody in the process, but you got the right to say exactly what you feel and how you feel it. And that's what this is about. This is about me telling the story through my eyes, the way that I seen it, the way that I saw it, the way that I felt it, the way that I lived it. And, if you was to talk to my brother Anthony, he'll see it a different way. Because we all different. We all unique in our own way. And, Booby's father came. The sisters was there. The grandmother was there. They were like praying there. I was so pissed off that they were praying. I'm telling you, this is how lost and how dark I was. I was so upset that the grandmother was there praying for Booby. I'm like, praying. And I'm telling you, I had a spirit of wickedness on me because I was so lost and I was so far gone that I was angry and I was like saying things under my breath when the grandmother was praying. And I've always liked to pride myself in not being that type of person and showing the older people, the elderly or just anyone older than myself, people that have been around longer than me. I really love to show people respect, man. But I was just so destroyed, man. I was so destroyed. I was messed up. I was there in the funeral home. I don't even remember, like, most of it. I was so torn apart. I was angry. I wanted to take it out on people. I was like, I was fucking, I don't know for what reason, but I was just so angry at Paula. I was like, I wanted to fight her ass because I know that she would fight back. That's why I just was so mad at everybody, at everything. And, it wasn't even about anybody. It was just the fact that I couldn't go in the casket and I couldn't wake my brother up. I couldn't, tell him, yo, come on, let's go. I couldn't have a last conversation. I couldn't have nothing. It was over. And in this process of setting up the funeral and doing all these things, I had my uncle come and, roll up to the block. So I'm over here fighting. I'm over here wilding out. I'm over here doing all these things. And, my uncle comes and he's, trying to get a hold of me, and he's telling me, hey, man, what's wrong with you? Look at this shit that you doing. You over here fighting with everybody, and I'm over here hearing people say shit about you. And I really didn't give a fuck what he was hearing, because I was dealing with what I was dealing with. And, I didn't care. I didn't care. But I know, in the process of all of that, my uncle told me, he told me, oh, I wish they would have killed you, motherfucker. You deserve to die. He didn't deserve this, but we all thinking it. We wish you would have died instead of him. And that shit on top of Booby being gone and being told like, oh, I wish you died, you know, like a part of me did die. Like when he died, a part of me did die. A big part of me. But to hear that shit from like, you know, like my uncle was like my father, and to hear that shit from him, like, oh yeah, you know, like man, that shit was like low, man. It was low because we all going through it. We all feeling what we feeling. But then the bullshit starts. Like the bullshit that happens when someone passes away. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? We have nobody else to attack. Hey, I got a bright idea. Let's attack each other. Let's attack one another. And you know, that's what my uncle, his wife, and the family on that side, you know, like that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what took place. You know, we have the funeral. There's people there that hate each other, that cut each other, that shot each other, shot at each other, jumped each other. All types of stuff has happened. And these are people that were sworn enemies for life because my brother was murdered and because he knew both parties involved and whatever drama they had, they all put that shit aside for a day or two just to come to a burial, just to come to a funeral and say goodbye to a good brother. And that's not, you know, like, thank God nothing happened at the funeral home. Everything seemed to be all right. And my uncle showed up and they were like in their own zone and everybody was like in their own place. I had the family that was distant of my brothers. Then I had my family that was like separated into like 2 or 3 groups because I had my mother there. I gotta protect my mom because my uncle and his family, they didn't like my mother and they were mad and oh, it's my mother's fault, it's the father's fault, it was everybody's fault. But I'm into taking responsibility, man. And you know, I love Booby and he made his choices. He made his choices. And yeah, the circumstances, they weren't good for him. But I'm not going to sit here and blame his father. I'm not going to sit here and blame my mother and blame everything else. Because in life, no matter how bad the choices we made them. It's our life. We got to take ownership for that. And that's where the change begins to happen. When you start to take ownership and you say, man, I'm doing this wrong. What can I do to change this? That's when the change starts to happen. When you take accountability. When you look in the mirror and you say, who is the master of disaster in my life? Yeah, I am. I'm the master of disaster. I'm tearing this shit up. In what way can I begin to take a different walk in life and do things different? And you know, unfortunately, Booby had the greatest heart, you know, and he connected a lot of people. He loved a lot of people. A lot of people loved him, and continue to love him. And you know, there was just like so many things. My family saying that stuff about me, wishing me death, wishing me ill, wishing that I would die. You know, people in the street like, oh, it's time for vengeance, it's time for this, you know, things gotta happen, and it's just so much chaos. It's so much chaos. On top of that, you got your own emotional state. You trying to like find your footing because your whole life has been ripped out from under you with what took place. You know, on top of that, I gotta handle the financial thing. I got help from one brother. I mean, I'm not gonna say just one person. There was a couple of people that came and they helped out. And you know, they show love. And it wasn't about finances. It was about people broke night with me. People didn't want to leave me alone. People had me sleep over with them. There was a lot of love, man. And that is one thing that it wasn't. We weren't short on love. We weren't short on compassion. There was no shortage, and that all came from people in the street. That all came from hardly anybody that was in my family. You know, none of that shit came from like my mother or my brother. You know, when that impacted us, you know, you would think that like my mom, my brother, myself, you think that we would get closer together. You think that we would go and try to be different. You think that we would be a family and say, man, we've been doing it wrong. Let's try to get it together. You know, none of that happened. It got worse. We went more deeper into the corners of the earth that we were just far away from each other. You know, and this, you know, this is the aftermath of all of that. This is exactly what it is. It's the aftermath of such a terrible tragedy that took place. You know, my brother started to disintegrate. He was so upset at what happened to his best friend. And he was just tired, man. And he wouldn't want to talk about it. I would try to talk to him. You know, I would tell him like Booby, like, you know, like we could do things, like we could go get a van, we could go to school together, we could, you know, try all these different things. I don't care. Like, we could do it together. Whatever we want, we could do it. And he really wasn't trying to hear that shit. He was like, man, get the fuck out of here, you be dreaming. He didn't say that, but his body language did. And because I've been through so much trauma and I've been unwanted in my life so much, in my childhood and even in my teenage years and my adult years, because of the way that I, you know, that I lived my life, and I didn't know that I was just, I didn't know that I was causing people to feel this way because of my behavior. Because I was just so damn rugged and self-centered and just raw, because life tore my ass up. You know, and that isn't an excuse, but that's just the truth. That's my truth. That's what I've been through. And I was a broken person that used to break people. Anybody, friends, girlfriends, anybody, family, like, I didn't care. It was just destruction. And that's what my life was. But when Booby died, when Booby was killed, that brought on a whole new meaning. I quit my job. Jesus. I was drinking all the time. I was drinking all the time, and I don't even remember if I was trying to look for work or anything. I just quit the best job that I've had in my life up to that point. And I just I was willing to do anything to destroy my life. I was willing to do anything that that made it impossible for me to make it to the next step, the next stage in my life. All I knew is that my brother was murdered and that I didn't care about anything. And then we go to the cemetery and we go to bury my brother. Man, and my family starts fighting with each other. My uncle Landy wants to go and he wants to fight Booby's father, and then my Uncle Papo, which is Yolandi's brother, he gets in the way. He's like, oh, that's his father. He got something to say. And then that's when the bullshit started. That ain't his father. Fuck him. And they start fighting. My Uncle Papa was fresh out of open heart surgery. And my cousin Orlando and my uncle, they jumped his ass like nothing. And like what was I gonna do? Cause if I got like 100, probably more of people that I know from the street, that if I go and I be violent with my own family, they are gonna go. The people from the street are gonna go and follow suit. And what I had to do is I just made sure my mother was alright. I made sure my aunts was okay. My aunt Dolly got her hair pulled. She's fighting with my uncle's wife, and she starts hitting on her. And I'm over here just trying to dead everything with the men, but there's other stuff going on with the women. And then, this is what happened at my brother's burial. This is what took place. It was disgusting. This, I wanted to send him off with respect, with admiration, with love, with tenderness, with care. And it was my own family that acted like uncivilized animals, man. Because that ain't respect, man. I understand we from the street. And I understand, we come from saying, you want to shoot the fair one, we could do that. Or you want to bust your gun, you want to grab your knife, you want to do this, you want to do that. Yeah, I understand all of that. But in the end, when somebody is murdered or someone passes away, all that shit falls by the wayside, man. And you show up and you be a decent human being and you try to be compassionate and loving and caring. And just try to be there for the family, because we get to have people like Booby, yes, was my family, but also I got the people in the street that are my family, that are very much like my brothers. And I love them. I love them the same way that I love Anthony, and the same way that I love Booby. I have relationships with a lot of, not a lot, a very few. But I do have a relationship with my boys in the street that we put in some work, and we've been through thick and thin in the street, and they become family, and that's the truth. They more family than family. You build more relationships, you have more time with them. And that's the case. And it was chaos. My uncle's wife starts throwing mud in the funeral home. She's grabbing mud and throwing it, because Booby got put in a spot where they would just it was all dirt, and they were just building going up the mountain in Cypress Hills. And it was disgusting, to be honest. It was disgusting. It was, and I was raised in the streets, and it was so distasteful that they did this. Finally, they got in their car, they left, and Booby was in the ground, and I stood there. They covered the casket, and I just wanted to jump in the hole with him. I wanted to jump in the hole. I just wanted to disappear. I didn't want to be here anymore. And that's the way I began living my life. After he died, after all of that, he gets murdered, my family starts fighting each other. People say the worst of the worst things to each other. There's no respect. There's nothing. It's just straight mayhem and straight like just no love, none. And there's no honor in that, none. I don't respect it. I still don't respect it. And it was horrible. So the burial happens. Say goodbye to a good brother. I think about that day, man. That day was horrible. I just, it was, I think that reality started to set in at that point, because it wasn't like real. I was just really like numb. I was just shocked. I was shocked it all happened so fast. And anybody that's ever lost somebody, you know that when you get that phone call and you hear, you know, like, yeah, it's over, you know. The funeral happens, and everybody starts going back to their normal day-to-day. And for me, Booby was 33 when he was murdered. He was 33, and how old was I? I was like 25. Yeah, Booby's 7 years older than me. I was like 26. I was 25, about to be turning. I was just turning 26. And that from 26 till I turned 33 years of age, that was 7 years, probably about 5 years straight. I was drinking, I was drugging, anything that I could do to feel numb, I was in the streets. And then Booby was murdered in 2004. And then my first kid's mother, I have two. My first kid's mother, you know, like, she has my son and my daughter. And, you know, like, my kid was born, I think, the following year. And I was tore up. And even having a baby, it didn't stop me from destroying my life. It didn't stop me from going into straight destruction mode. I thought that it would. Like, it slowed me down a lot. It really did. Like, it slowed me down from how fast or how far I could go. So it sort of kept me, like, on a balance. You know, always putting in my mind, like, oh, you're gonna have a kid now. And, you know, I couldn't be reached. I was messed up. And I struggled, and I wanted to try to get clean and stuff like that. And I couldn't. I tried going to some meetings here and there, and try to go to, like, bereavement and stuff like that. And I didn't understand that I was just so far gone. I don't know, I'm trying to think of it, like, just something to describe, like, how far gone I was. So not only because of what I've been through in my life, and And all these trials and tribulations that I've been through in my life that destroyed me already to this point. Now I got the drugs, I got the alcohol, and then I got the murder of my brother, which threw me into oblivion. And if you thought, like, and if I thought that I was like, if I thought that I was lost before, like, no, you know, like, yeah, this had me out there. And I remember, like, anytime I could, I would be getting drunk. I'm trying to, like, party. I'm trying to do all these things. I'm like, I'm gone. And definitely I put my kid's mother, you know, through a lot of shit. And she's been through a lot of shit on her own. My first kid's mom. And, you know, I just know that I pushed the envelope so much, and I was just drunk, and my life was like, I didn't think about the future. I didn't think about anything. I didn't think about what life is gonna be like to move forward. And I didn't plan for anything. I didn't plan for my future. I didn't plan for life. I didn't plan for anything whatsoever. I just was getting drunk and getting high, and I just didn't want to be here anymore. At least that's how I felt. And then I was like, oh, you're going to leave your daughter, and then, you know, you're going to leave your son, you're going to leave all of this, you're going to leave that, you're going to, you know, like, you're going to leave all these things behind. And it was just mental, it was like spiritual warfare. Like, I was trying to get back, like, trying to find some moral high grounds, just something to bring me back to a place I've never been, because I've never been healthy, and I've never been emotionally, you know, like, intelligent and responsible. And there was so many things that I wasn't, but there was a lot of things that I was. You know, and I always had a heart, and I always was willing to help people, and I would like to believe that in a lot of ways I was a good friend. I was just so lost, and I had no outlet. I didn't understand how to build a bridge back to life. I didn't understand anything. I burned everything that I could. I burned everything to the ground. Everything, friendships, brotherhood, relationships with family, even my relationship with my kid's mother. She hated me, and I hated her too. And I hated her right back. You know, we played this game of, like, I'm gonna hurt you, you're gonna hurt me. So on top of that, Booby gets killed. My kid's mother's pregnant. She has the baby. You know, we going through all these things. And on top of that, you know, like, she was like, oh yeah, you like to do these things. She was vicious. And she would throw my clothes out, put them in bags, throw them out on decal. People be like, yo, there was a girl that just passed by, threw all your shit out on decal. I see people looking through clothes, and it was my shit in the street. And I was drunk, and I didn't care, and I was always in the street, and that's how I lived my life for years, man, after Booby passed away. And, you know, we could talk about, you know, my kids being born, and what transpires in the next part of my life. But I tell you this, when I tell you that I burned bridges, I'm telling you that I scorched earth so that nobody could be there for me. I wanted all the pain. I wanted all the destruction. I wanted my life, I wanted it to be that nobody ever wanted to talk to me again. That's what I wanted. I didn't give a shit who made sense of anything. But I just wanted hell. I wanted the flame. I wanted all of it. And that was the aftermath of what took place. So I'm telling you, man, like, you could do all those things. You could destroy your life in ways that you think that you could never make it back. And, I'm still here. And I remember a long time, like, I remember a long time ago, like, they were saying, like, Angel went, and because I took a few things and picked them up. I gave away most of the movie stuff. I really didn't care. Yeah, like paintball stuff and all this. I just didn't care. I didn't want none of that stuff. I didn't care for any of that stuff. And the only thing that I wanted was like his ring. I had his ring. And while I was in the street, and while I was living like that, people gossip all the time. That's how the streets are. That shit is alive. There's reporters everywhere in the street. And gossip changes from mouth to mouth. It gets worse and worse and worse. But I remember that like, I had Booby's ring with his name on it. And, people would just talk trash about me, like my life turned to shit. There was no secret. I was lost. I have one person that I used to be friends with, and she told me, damn, it's so sad that you're such a good looking man and you a pretty decent guy and you just never gonna make it out of this life. You're never gonna live a good life. You're just always gonna be caught up in this circle. And I remember her saying that, and I was like, like, I could take criticism, and I was like, yeah, probably not. And I was like accepting that. And that to me is just nuts. But I really did use it as motivation. But so I had Booby's ring, and people were like, they were talking trash. Oh, people saying that you sold Booby's ring. And I was like, damn. People ain't got shit to do in their lives to say that I took my brother's ring. The only thing that I had that really linked his physical being to me still, like, was that physical ring. And they're like, oh yeah, like, people saying that you sold your brother's ring. Yeah. I still wear my brother's ring around my neck, and he's missing one little diamond there. And there it is. There goes my brother's ring. The thing that I got left from him physically on this earth. I got my brother's ring there. And it's not to prove anybody wrong. It's just, it feels good to know that even at the lowest points of my life, I had some integrity. I had some self-worth, some value there. I wasn't completely depleted, but I have kicked the shit out of my life to this point. And it was really tough. And nobody wanted to help me because I didn't want to help myself. And nobody could help you until you decide that you have a problem, and then you decide you want to do something about it, and then you start to seek help. And if anybody out there needs help, anybody out there needs direction, anybody out there needs some type of resource or anything like that, reach out to me. You could send me a message, send me your number, and the next episode I'm gonna try to set up a number where people could reach out to me directly, and if you want to talk about things and you want to have a private conversation, and you're not about being on a platform or anything like that, I want to make myself available to listen, to help, to show you love, to let you know that you matter on this earth, because we all need each other. I need you. You know, people definitely love to be around me. I got good people in my life, and we don't have to be living right next door to each other. We get on that phone and we call and we have meaningful conversations. My brothers know who they are, and sometimes we do meet up, and it's like magic, man. Like, it's like the way it was when we were kids. The love, the integrity, the compassion, everything is there, man. It's always there, and that's the beauty of real human bonds, and that's what I want to build. That's the inspiration I want to give. Look at how bad my life is at this point, and as you continue to hear my story, you're gonna hear how good and how much better things have gotten in my life, and how they continue to be better as I show up and as I do my best every day on a daily basis. You know, so thank you for listening. On the next episode, we're going to be unraveling how it was that I came to find a change and a difference and a different direction in my life. You know, thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up. Please like, view, subscribe, share the video with anybody that needs to hear a little bit of inspiration. And, you know, I appreciate you guys. And God bless you, and I'll catch you on the next one.